Today on TLC Live, we are 27 days away from Elections Day, and our guest is the current Harris County Commissioner's Precinct 4, who is running for re-election, Jack Cagle. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live. I'm Andrea Gomez.
And I'm Orlando Sanchez.
Good morning, and today we have an exciting show. We are 27 days away from Elections Day. Yesterday was the last day to register to vote. Early voting started October 24, and then Elections Day is November 8. But more people are leaving the Democratic Party.
I wonder why.
And it's not only happening in Texas, it's happening around the country. And we have a video that it was just released yesterday from the former Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard.
Former Democrat. She's still a congresswoman? Former Democrat.
Former Democrat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she posted that video on all her platforms in social media, and then it was a headline everywhere in all the outlets in the news. So let's watch.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
Well, she didn't say
Wow.
that she's going to be Republican.
She's leaving the Democratic Party.
But everything that she said sounds very conservative to me.
Yeah. I mean, America's middle of the road. They don't like the extremes, and they want sensible, practical people. And let me tell you, the reason Ryan Guillen in Texas left the Democratic Party, the reason she's leaving the Democratic Party is that the Democratic Party, at one time, had some good candidates and some good elected officials, and they did things, and they worked with conservatives, and they ironed out issues, and it was give and take. But today, it's a party of extremism. It's a party of sort of hatred. It's a party of separation. And what has happened to the Democratic Party is they have misunderstood the American society, if I might say, because when we immigrate here, I'm an immigrant, Andrea's an immigrant, regardless of where we come here with the vision of being patriots, with the vision of being Americans, with the vision of being part and parcel in the fabric of America and building a better America, not only for us, for our children. And I can tell you from a Hispanic perspective is that Hispanics desire nothing more. Because we did a survey about this, right? Mm-hmm. We asked Hispanics, how do you identify yourself to your friends? The majority of Latinos identify themselves as Americans. And then if they're in Texas, they identify themselves as Texans. And so when the Democratic Party comes in, as the Congresswoman says, they want to divide us by race. They want to make us hate white people. And they want white people to hate African Americans and African Americans to be at odds with the Hispanics. Mm-hmm. That's not America. That's not conservatism. Conservatism recognizes that everyone is covered by the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and we're all in it together. Doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in. Doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. We're all Americans. And I think the Congresswoman realizes that and has had enough of the Democratic Party. And so I'm hoping, for the sake of American politics and the two-party system, that the Democrats come back to a sensible reality. And but in the meantime, you folks are just going to have to elect more conservatives to represent you, and there's only one party that'll do that, and that's the Republican Party. And we have one of those guys, right, that's going to represent us, that doesn't
Correct.
divide our community, that represents everybody, because Precinct 4 in Harris County is a very diverse
And
precinct.
but now the candidate that is running for re-election is also now struggling in Harris County with the current administration that we have, and that's why we have here Mr. Jack Cagle. He is a Harris County Commissioner Precinct 4, and he's looking for re-election. And of course, he is a friend of Texas Latino Conservative, and TLC is also supporting him. So welcome, Mr. Cagle. Jack, I mean, you guys are being friends for many, many, many years. So I'd let you say something more about him.
Well, I've always referred to him as Cactus Jack, but now, because of his official capacity, I have to call him Commissioner Cagle. And we were talking before the show. We've known each other so long, we actually both had hair. So welcome, Commissioner.
It is a delight to be on your program. I love the TLC, Texas Latino Conservatives, but it also means tender loving care. And what you have been describing earlier is the love, the care for our country, so that together that we can all work together. We used to be proud of the fact that we were a place like a gumbo, that everyone would come in and lend their flavors to have a great dish that we could all enjoy and savor together. Sometimes we were called a melting pot. And the concept is that all of our distinctivenesses would come together to make us a better, greater place. I married a young lady 42 years ago in December from El Paso del Norte. And so this whole divisiveness that we see these days, I agree with the former Republican congressman, is not the right direction to go. And we saw this here in Texas. Orlando, when you and I first became attracted to and wanted to make a difference in our communities, we had a senator, at that time he was a congressman by the name of Phil Graham. And he was a longstanding Democrat. And the Democrat Party in Texas started to shift away from those values of faith and home, family, God, country, and started that pathway of emphasizing these more divisive issues. And he left and became a Republican, ran for election as a Republican, and ended up becoming our senator, and a few years back actually ran for president. And so I see what our Hawaiian congresswoman doing is very similar to leading in that state this idea that division is not what we're about. We're about gathering together. And the new Precinct 4 is amazingly diverse. We have some 64 languages with restaurants. And so you can learn to eat in many, many languages that are here. 40% of the population in Precinct 4 happens to be Hispanic. And as a conservative Republican in our polling data, it is interesting that I am doing better in the Hispanic community than I am in the Anglo community in Harris County Precinct 4. Those values of service, hard work, clean bathrooms in the parks, fixing the potholes so that when your car goes down the road, it's safe. You don't have to spend money to have to fix a tire or be late to work. These values are amazingly wonderful values that make us uniquely who we are as a community.
Well, that's it's well said, Commissioner. I want the viewers to know that Commissioner Cagle is probably the most qualified member of the Commissioner's Court, and let me tell you why. He sat on the bench in the justice system of Harris County for many years before he attained the position of county commissioner. Right now in Harris County, we know that crime is out of control, Andrea. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
We have political action committees called Stop Houston Murders. We know that We're approaching 200 innocent Harris County citizens that have been murdered by those that have been put out on low bonds or no bonds by repeat criminals. It is pathetic what's going on. And Commissioner Cagle spent many years on the bench, so he knows the justice system in Harris County, and now he sees it from the administrative side. And he's been struggling with this current administration. Lena Hidalgo is county judge, and then Rodney Ellis, who's actually the de facto county judge, because unfortunately Lena Hidalgo has ceded her ability to lead this county to Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who has for years, ever since he was in the legislature, tried to reform in his own vision the criminal justice system, which is contrary to what most Texans believe. Am I far off the mark, Commissioner Cagle?
No, you're spot on. In fact, Commissioner Ellis, about a year ago, made the comment that the true victims in the modern American society are the accused, not the people that were murdered, raped, robbed, assaulted, not them. The accused are the true victims in American society. And this whole pinky swear system of where you commit a crime and you swear that you won't do it again and you're out is just not working. It is a failed social experiment. It's the experiment that we've paid. The majority voted to spend $7 million to a research group called PFM. And they said that we should follow the best practices of Chicago and LA and Detroit and New Orleans and all of these other cities. And they have succeeded. Apparently, we're in a competition with those cities that folks are leaving to come here. And now our murder rate in Harris County from month to month is neck and neck with the murder rate of Chicago. That is not the system that we should emulate. We should go back to our own basics. 7 months ago, when our budget hearings, and we had budget hearings then, were in place, the majority denied 82% of the requests of local law enforcement. And you'll hear all of this stuff in election season because everybody knows that crime is out of control. In fact, the last officer who was murdered was actually killed by someone out on bond for a murder, and the second person for aggravated murder. So I mean, you've got this compounding out there. So now all of a sudden, everybody's in favor of law enforcement, and the rhetoric is very, very interesting. But there's an old adage out there: you can fool some of the people all the time, you can fool all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. The cops have had enough. And yesterday at Commissioner's Court, the courthouse was filled with officers of all colors, stripes, ethnic backgrounds, who are saying enough is enough. And they are supporting my reelection in this zone because for 4 years we have been fighting to get them the resources they need. And what they've been told is that we have to be smarter on crime, not tough on crime. And so the majority follows the advice of these failed cities instead of listening to our local cops who know what the problems are. We need to have more deputies on the streets and in the neighborhoods. You know, in the early days of New York, where there was low income and poverty, but you had in the neighborhood stores that were opening up because it was safe to do business. And a lot of those little small shops ended up becoming big chains later on. You know, we have food deserts now in some of our communities because a store owner can't open up a store because he's going to either be robbed or his profits are going to be stolen from. And so they're not going to open up where crime is in this zone. If we want to have robust, growing communities, if you want your kid when he's 16 to go down and sweep floors for a store, you want it to be a safe place to where he can be hired locally. Well, to do that, you got to take care of the crime problem first, because if you have a crime problem, you will not have prosperity. And that's one of the things that I think that we all understand in our listenership with the TLC here is that hard work pays benefits. But if someone steals your hard work, either it be through high taxes or whether they steal it in your stores, then you will not be able to be prosperous.
You know, Commissioner, and I won't give Andrea a chance to talk. She thinks I hog all the time, but
He does.
you know, I always say Republicans are about winning the next election, and Democrats and the left are about long-term visions. As most everybody knows, and for those that don't know, I served as county treasurer for Harris County for 12 long years when the county was run by Republicans, conservatives. Commissioner Cagle was on the commissioner's court at the time. We were financially sound. I know because I ran the checkbook. We were in the black. We didn't do tax anticipation notes anymore. We had money for infrastructure. We had money for law enforcement. We were actually, the jail was getting under control. All of that's a disaster nowadays. But one of the things I observed some time ago, and just to tell you how the Democrats planned strategically these things, they invited a nonprofit organization called the MacArthur Foundation to Harris County. The MacArthur Foundation had a board member, Bernadine Dorn, who is the wife of Bill Ayers of the Weather Underground. Now an esteemed professor who, as you know, the Weather Underground bombed the U.S. Capitol back in the 60s. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? And the more I researched, the more I was concerned, because the MacArthur Foundation was about criminal justice reform, and they hooked up with George Soros, who made a huge investment in the Harris County District Attorney's race, so that we lost the Republican conservative in the Harris County, and you could see this coming. I mean, if you study these things, you can see this coming, and it's just beyond me. And you see the culmination of it now. Lucky for them, there was a lawsuit filed. Which, by the way, I used to sit on the Harris County Bail Bond Board, and I agreed that a person that commits a first-time offense as a shoplifter, writes a hot check, shouldn't sit in jail, languishing, lose their jobs, create all kinds of problems for them. That, I think we could all agree that we should have reformed that. But Commissioner, Harris County went way beyond that, did they not? Now letting out all the felons and no bonds and personal recognizance bonds, and these assessments that these judges do are just absolutely ridiculous. Can we turn this around with conservative leadership in Harris County and reelecting you, and then bringing in Alex Mealer and Jack Mormon?
Yes. And you need to also replace the judges that are setting these ridiculous bonds over in the criminal justice system. The pressure is on them to conform to what Commissioner's Court is saying that they must do. Otherwise, they'll draw opponents in their primaries, and there's all kinds of terrible stuff that goes on that's threatened and implied. But the dockets are delayed. Justice delayed is justice denied. The realm of the prosecutors, and this is a strange world where Republicans are actually advocating for the Democrat DA to get more resources. If you're a victim of a crime right now, your DA is handling between 500 and 600 cases. How are they going to give your case adequate coverage and treatment when they're handling 499 other files? Meanwhile, the public defender that you also are paying for is limited to 100 cases, and they get paid twice as much as your prosecutor DA gets paid. That's not right. That's an upside down of the system. We need to have balance. We need to have judges that are going to do their job. We need to have adequate prosecutors to push the cases through the system. And we need to make sure that we have enough cops, community policing, so that you know who your cop is, your cop knows who you are. And when something ends up missing, that cop, because he's familiar with the neighborhood, knows, oh yeah, that's Orlando's cousin over there. We've been having problems with them. They already know who it is, and they can take care of the problem. And everybody in the neighborhood is comfortable and safe because we are all working together to make sure that everything is done right. Right now, we are losing our best cops because we have Commissioner Mormon and I, back before this sweep that came in with Ed Emmett, had done a two-part process of trying to get pay equalization in for our sheriffs and our constables. We'd approved $20 million in 2019, and then for 2020, we were supposed to have another $20 million to get the pay up. That $20 million was denied, has never come through. Commissioner Ramsey and I have tried to get additional cops, additional pay in. Oh, but lo, when we have an election coming up, then they dangle the carrot of, well, we might give some meager pay raises if you're willing to increase the taxes on the population by $250 million. If you rent, maybe your landlord will be nice to you and not pass on the increase of the property tax to your business when you're trying to come out of the pandemic and rebuild. If you're in a home and you're trying to figure out how to make your bills pay, maybe you've got the excess money, but the government, which has grown from $3.3 billion in terms of what it's been spending on the county side from 4 years ago to where it's now $4.6 billion. It's almost grown a third in the size. It's an employment agency, but not for cops and boots on the ground and basic services. We need to get our government back to the basics. Fixing the police, making sure that flood control is taken care of with regard to long-term vision, not just dealing with short-term matters that are there, because those are things that I think that all of us care about. Making sure that our parks have clean bathrooms. I know that's not a sexy thing to talk about. Our bathrooms in Precinct 4 are not quite yet to the Buc-ee's standard, but that's our goal. We're trying to get
I was going
there
to say
so
it worked for Buc-ee's.
when you have a hard day working, you want to be able to go to the park with your family and relax and to make the park safe. We transferred from the Precinct 4 budget, commissioner's budget, to our constables $2.6 million so that we could have constables actually in the parks. When I grew up, Orlando, my mom and dad would say, go outside and play and just be back before dark. Today, parents don't feel safe sending their kids out. No. And they don't even feel safe being in a park when they're there at times, unless you're in a Precinct 4 park, because we have hired additional deputies to be there to make sure that everybody stays safe when you're in the parks, because we need to be able to enjoy our public spaces. And so you've got your, and then the third thing is infrastructure, potholes, as we talked about before. And the county does have a responsibility for the county roads, and we partner with the cities. There's 6 cities in Precinct 4 to make sure that our potholes are fixed and doing well. And then the fourth P that we do, it's public safety, it's parks, it's potholes, and then it's a property tax rate, a reasonable rate. Those who work hard become familiar with this individual called Mr. FICA, who's taking more and more of your paycheck. And they become familiar also with those tax bills as they come in that take more and more of their hard earnings. The government, the county, can take from you without your consent a certain percentage. But you don't have the ability to go out and get that from someone else. And by the way, Orlando, you did a fabulous job as our treasurer holding our money back in the day. You were able to make sure that all of the checks were balanced, that everything was done appropriately. And we need to get you back into public service, my friend, because you're
well, Commissioner,
was
definitely we need real leadership. That it's a lot of work that we need to be done in Harris County. We're gonna go to a commercial break, and we'll come back with you.
Our grandparents built Texas. We power it every day. But the party that says they care about us no longer honors the work we do. They raise our taxes, drive up inflation, give us handouts, and expect us to be grateful. Now, you have a choice. Jack Cagle will honor our work, lower our taxes, and clean up corruption. Learn more about Jack Cagle. Visit TexasLatinoConservatives.com. And look, we have him in the flesh.
We have him. Yeah, that was good. You know, we were all of us when we were filming that commercial. You were talking to our community in one of the famous Mexican restaurants here in Houston. But Commissioner, you were talking a lot about when we Judge Emmett. That was back in the days when we have real leadership. Now, of course, you are representing the number 4. The commission score number 4. But here is the problem that we have, or that you are facing also, and everybody in Harris County is facing: the lack of leadership. So is you against everything that is going on, and it's like a domino effect. It's we, because this is a team. It's a teamwork. It's a team effort. So if many of the pieces are not working, nothing is going to work. And that's why we are in the situation that we are in Harris County. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges you guys are facing, that we are facing here in Harris County. So tell us about that and tell us what we need to be done as a community, not only go and vote conservative, but what else we need to be done for things to start working the way it needs to work.
First of all, in this election, you no longer have the straight party vote. And so it becomes very, very important for every one of us to vote to the very end of the ballot. My race, I understand, will be somewhere around page 87 or 89 of the electronic ballot. That is a lot of pages to have to go through. And so I encourage everybody to go to the very end of the ballot. And I'm also, because I'm a former judge, I'm going to encourage folks when it comes to the judicial races, if we have this thing called burden of proof, who are you going to make proof? If you believe that the current system that these Democrat judges are doing is broken, unless one of those judges can prove to you that they're doing a good job, then vote for the Republican. Just put the burden of proof upon the other side, because the evidence is there. People come to me all the time and say, all I want to do is to be able to go to a restaurant at night and wear my jewelry. What about a concept of that? Have safe where you could actually go to a restaurant and wear your jewelry.
Or drive a nice car.
Without the fear of it being having your catalytic converter cut off or be damaged otherwise. I mean, that's the big issue right now. We have all these gangs of crime that's out there. Second thing, and you touched on it there, Andrea, I love you. Right now, part of the dysfunction is there's a gang of three over there that are against everything that the Democrat Party traditionally was for. My name, Cactus Jack, is actually after an old Texas politician whose name was Cactus Jack, and he was someone that believed in rugged individualism. He was very conservative in his views, but he was an active member of. He was Vice President of Roosevelt. He was a Democrat. But those values, as our Congresswoman said earlier, the party left her. She stayed the same. And I think that's the way that a lot of us, we need to realize is that Democrat Party has left them and moved into this progressive mindset to where the criminals are the ones who are the victims and not those who are being victimized by the crime. And so I need you to bring Alex Mueller there to Commissioner's Court, Alex de Moral Mueller. And so some folks say, well, I need to vote for the Hispanic. Yeah, two Hispanics. One is conservative, cares about crime. The other one cares about best practices and following what best practices are and being smart on crime, not stopping crime. Mm-hmm. So bring Alex Mueller, vote to the end of the ballot. Jack Mormon, bring him back. Back when we were there, we were taking common sense approaches. Orlando remembers that when he was, before he was turned in his keys in his office, we had $300 million in our PIC fund. That's our public contingency fund. So if we had another hurricane, we would be safe and able to handle the hurricane. 6-7 months ago, we were down to $4 million. It's now back up to 70-something million, and I'm not quite sure how that happened, but the numbers get a little slidey every now and then with regard to things. But why are we blowing through all of these? The government is growing, the bank accounts are dwindling, and crime is rising, but they're telling you that it's not.
I can tell you.
It's just cops.
I can tell you. Because she's busy in her administration giving contracts to their buddies. She's had several people in her office indicted for rigging contracts. You guys correctly brought that out. It wasn't about helping people. It wasn't about creating more capacity at hospitals, which we have wonderful hospitals. If she wanted to create capacity, she would have done that. Instead, they create these parking lots, hospitals, and pay these fictitious employees, $20,000 a day,
and nobody uses it,
and write a contract for health care to somebody who's a political consultant. For God's sake, when we have the University of Texas medical branch here in Houston, one of the world premier medical teaching institutions and public health institutions ready and able to provide the best health care. They rig a contract, and it's unbelievable that she is not, Lena Hidalgo's not indicted, but, certainly her staff has been indicted, and they'll have to account to the public. But that's where the money's going, Jack. I mean, this isn't top secret information.
One of the things that I find fascinating that hasn't been spoken of more often. Remember when Bill Clinton shook his finger and said, "I've not had sexual relations with that woman"? When I confronted Judge Hidalgo on the contract for Elevate Strategy, she called me a bald-faced liar for saying that it was a one-woman shop. And I pulled up the laptop and went to the website, and these were her words on her website. She said, "Myself alone." And the judge at that moment doubled down and still called me a bald-faced liar for saying that this woman was a one-person shop. And then made the comment that she did not even know who the woman was. Then she snapped her fingers and wiggled them. Then the Texas Rangers send out their subpoenas. And then we get the data, and there's all these emails from her in her office with this one-person shop. And her answer then was, well, that was on a different contract. A different contract. So I had those visions of waving the finger, "I have had no relations with that woman," or the snapping of the fingers and wiggling them and saying, "Bring it, because there's nothing here. I don't even know who the woman is." When she did, the public, for whatever reason, the public doesn't know. She in court said she did not know who the woman was. But then, when caught with the emails, that was for a different contract.
Sure.
Which
so either you know her or you don't.
Thank you.
Exactly.
All right, we're kind of out of time.
We're going to go to a commercial break talking about Alex Miller.
Okay.
And that's also another commercial that it was produced by TLC.
Okay. Our grandparents built Texas. We power it every day. But the party that says they care about us no longer honors the work we do. They raise our taxes, drive up inflation, give us handouts, and expect us to be grateful. Now, you have a choice. Alex Miller will honor our work, lower our taxes, and clean up corruption. Learn more about Alex Miller. Visit TexasLatinoConservatives.com.
Now we have a choice, and our choice is to go and vote. Early voting is October 24. Elections is November 8. Call to action, Commissioner, please talk to our community, Latinos, no Latinos, from everywhere, because we are so diverse here in Harris County and in Texas. So talk to the voters what we need to do. And I love to vote in early voting because you never know what's going to happen on the Tuesday on November 8th. So we need to encourage people and tell them, go and vote in early voting. It's everywhere you can go. It's so easy. The process is so easy. But as you said, we need to go to all till the end and vote everywhere, because some people get a little bit lazy or they don't know. And that's why we need to start, keep on telling people and educating our community.
Vote. Vote early and legally vote often. And by legally voting often, that means bring a friend, bring your neighbors, call your nephews, your cousins, your brothers, your family members, because this election is a major election. If you want to stop crime in our streets, you need to get everybody you know to vote. And I encourage you to vote early. You're going to have 2 weeks of early voting. There's no excuse. You never know what's going to happen on election day. Come in, vote early, and bring others with you. And when you vote, make sure you educate them. Vote all the way down to the bottom. Another thing that you can do that's a very simple thing, and that is go online to either Judge to be Miller or to my website, Jack Cagle, and get signs. A sign is an endorsement, and put it in your yard to let your neighbors know that this is who you need to be supporting. Because as the Texas Latino Conservatives, or the TLC, the Tender Loving Care people who care for our community, we need to make a change. We need to make a change. Y'all talked about the good old days when there was harmony and peace in the streets and we didn't have to worry about whether you're going to wear your jewelry to the store or not. We need to get back to where we've got sanity, that we've got sane budgets, and that we're spending the money where we need to. $48 million was spent by this administration for 1,000 kids for early childhood education. That's free daycare for 1,000 kids. That's $48,000 per child that you pay for as a freebie as taxpayers. That's not fair to you. Who's going to pick the 1,000 kids? We don't even know who many of them are. And there's supposed to be this thing called school districts that you're already paying taxes for, 22 school districts. So whether you believe that early childhood education should be something that government is paying for or not, it should not be paid for by your county commissioner's court. That's not our job. Get back to cops, the police, get back to parks, get back to making sure that we have our public safety and our flood control in place, our potholes, and a reasonable property tax rate. And if folks want to pay more in taxes but get less in services, tell them to stay away from the polls. But if they want to make a positive change, vote and vote all the way to the bottom of the ballot. Get a yard sign. That's an endorsement. Stake out your position and tell your neighbors, tell your friends to come, because this election is anticipated to be a watershed election. It can make such a huge difference in our communities.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Well
and
said.
we're going to let the commissioner go back to work overseeing our tax dollars and let him get back out on the campaign trail. There are rumors that if you put a Jack Cagle bumper sticker on your car, it actually increases the value of your car by about $5,000. So get a bumper sticker, get a yard sign. Commissioner, thank you very much for your time. Love your hat. Good luck, Godspeed, and we'll see you soon.
Blessings to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, before we go off the air, we have Larissa Ramirez. I wanted you to introduce who she is. We're going to have her soon. And also we have her commercial.
All right. So let's go to a commercial break real quick, and then we'll tell you about the person that we feature in this spot. Go ahead, Mark. Hi, I'm Orlando Sanchez, enthusiastically endorsing Larissa Ramirez for League City Council. Join me and other elected officials supporting her.
I want to be able to use my 20 years of disaster recovery and construction management experience to tackle on those issues that we face, such as traffic and drainage. And my promise to you is to do that with full transparency, and I need your vote.
We're going to have her soon here in TLC Live.
So real quick, let me give you a little background so people understand how Texas Latino Conservatives works. Our mission was always to get young Hispanics involved in the political process, because Latinos and Hispanics we knew were conservative but didn't really have much participation in local politics in Texas and even in the state. So our mission was to find good candidates and run them for office to keep Texas conservative in the long run for our community in our state. And so one of the things we get nowadays is a lot of phone calls. And last week I get a phone call from a young lady named Larissa Ramirez. And apparently she'd been watching and following us, and she says, you know, that she was inspired by Mayra Flores, the first Mexican-born congresswoman that we helped, along with others, train in the Rio Grande Valley, who became the first conservative Mexican-born member of the U.S. Congress in a Democrat district, in Congressional District 34. So Larissa says, I've been inspired and I want to be like Mayra Flores. And I said, well, you know, I have to visit with this young lady. So I called her and I spent about 40 minutes on the phone with her. And she was a rock solid conservative, hardworking mom. She works. She is a former employee of the General Land Office, worked in disaster recovery. So she knows about infrastructure. She knows about flooding. She knows about construction, and she wants to serve the people of League City, Texas. And so we're behind her 100%, but not only am I behind her, former General Land Office Commissioner Jerry Patterson has endorsed her, former Congresswoman and former City Council member Dr. Shelley Sakula Gibbs has endorsed her. I've endorsed her. Hispanic Republicans of Texas has endorsed her. Texas Latino conservatives have endorsed her. And we need the people, the good people of League City, to endorse Larissa Ramirez and go vote for her so that we continue to have good conservatives down in League City. Part of League City is in Harris County. The other part is in Galveston County. And speaking of Galveston County, you know who else has endorsed Larissa? The former mayor of Galveston, Roger Bo Quiroga. Right?
Otro Latino.
The only Hispanic ever elected as mayor of Galveston, Texas. And by the way, Bo Quiroga, for those that you don't know, was actually a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Wow.
That's a lot of information.
A lot of going on. We're going to have her soon in TLC Live. I'm just waiting for her to confirm when she's going to be available. But this is so exciting, everything that is going on in politics, and people are realizing that the conservative is the way to go.
Yep. All right, I keep looking at the clock. I'm out of time. I got to get out of here.
I know. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado y recuerde siempre visitar TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. Check it out and also become a member. Los veo el próximo miércoles. See you soon.
Goodbye, all.